Imagine lining up on an English pitch in 1873. No pads, no protection, just your shins against the boots of 22 men who have never heard of a shin guard. Early association football was brutal. The rules were barely a decade old, tackling was ferocious, and the only thing between your leg and a boot was a thin wool stocking. The Football Association had written the rules in 1863, but nobody had thought to protect the player's body. You played, you bled, you limped home. Enter Samuel Widdowson. Born in 1851 in Hucknall, Nottinghamshire, a forward for Nottingham Forest and a batsman for Nottinghamshire County Cricket. That double life turned out to matter. On the cricket pitch, Widdowson wore padded leg guards to protect against the ball. One day in 1874, something clicked. He cut a pair of cricket pads down to size and strapped the strips to the outside of his football stockings. He walked onto the pitch and changed the game. His teammates thought it eccentric. Opponents found it hilarious. A man wearing cricket pads to play football, but Widdowson kept playing and his shins kept their skin. Within a few seasons, other Nottingham Forest players started doing the same. Then rivals noticed. The mockery faded as the bruises didn't. By 1880, the Shin Guard had made it into the sporting press. The first recorded mention described them as pads worn beneath the stocking, quietly accepted, no longer a joke. Commercial shin guards appeared in the 1880s, thick strips of tanned leather, stiff and curved to follow the leg, made by firms already supplying cricket and rugby gear. You strapped them over your stocking, buckled them at the back, and hoped they stayed put. Hot, heavy, uncomfortable, and a vast improvement on nothing. Football's governing bodies were paying attention. As the professional game grew through the 1890s, the argument for mandatory protection grew louder, though it would take another century to become law. By the 1900s, shin guards were common among professionals, though far from universal. Photographs from FA Cup matches show some players wearing them, others bare-legged and unbothered. Through the 1920s and 30s, the design barely changed. A leather strip inside the stocking. Simple, cheap, good enough. It survived 2 world wars unchanged. As football spread across Europe and South America, so did the shin guard. Players in Brazil and Argentina adapted the design, sometimes fashioning their own from whatever materials were to hand. The post-war materials revolution changed everything. By the 1960s, manufacturers were experimenting with molded plastic, lighter than leather, more precisely shaped, easier to mass-produce. Molded plastic could follow the exact curve of a shin. It distributed impact across a wider surface. The fractures became rarer. The next leap was padding the inside. A layer of polyurethane foam bonded to the shell turned the shin guard from a deflector into a shock absorber. Through the 1970s and 80s, the shin guard moved from outside the stocking to inside it, a cleaner profile, less likely to shift mid-tackle. In 1990, FIFA formally required shin guards in all sanctioned matches under the laws of the game. 116 years after Widdowson's cricket pads, protection became compulsory. At every World Cup since 1990, every player on every pitch has been legally required to wear them. Referees can, and occasionally do, inspect before kickoff. The 1990s brought carbon fiber into elite sport, and shin guard makers followed. Carbon fiber is stiffer than plastic, lighter than leather, and distributes force with extraordinary efficiency. A modern shin guard has 3 layers, a hard outer shell, impact-absorbing foam in the middle, and a moisture-wicking inner lining. The whole thing weighs less than a cricket ball. Modern shin guards are engineered to pass impact resistance tests. Manufacturers simulate studs striking at speed, measuring how much force reaches the bone beneath. Widdowson's cricket pads would not pass. In the 1990s, a new form appeared, the Shin Guard with an attached ankle protector held in place by a sleeve, popular with younger players and recreational footballers. Here is the strange part. As technology improved, Shin Guards got smaller. Elite players requested slimmer and slimmer profiles, barely covering the span the laws technically require. Walk into a Premier League dressing room today, and you will find Shin Guards that look like a playing card slipped into a sock. Technically legal, barely covering anything. Research suggests Shin Guards meaningfully reduce lacerations and tibial fractures. The data on more serious injuries, ankle fractures, fibula breaks, is more complicated and still debated. Top players often choose minimal guards for feel. Defenders, who take more direct impact, tend to choose larger ones. The position you play quietly determines how much shin you're willing to risk. At the elite level, some players have Shin Guards custom molded to their exact leg shape, with personalized padding density. Protective equipment that costs more than most people's shoes. At the other end, hundreds of millions of Shin Guards are sold every year to youth players worldwide. By some estimates, the global market is worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Law 4 currently specifies Shin Guards must be covered by the stocking, provide reasonable protection, and not be dangerous to any player. 3 sentences governing a planet of footballers. A referee who believes a player's Shin Guards are non-compliant can send them off the pitch to correct the equipment. It has happened at the professional level, in matches watched by millions. Samuel Widdowson went on to referee FA Cup matches and help shape early football administration. He died in 1927, having watched the Shin Guard become standard, though never yet law. Nottingham Forest is better known for European Cup victories in 1979 and 80 under Brian Clough. But the club's quieter claim to history sits in 1874. The Shin Guard did not come from football at all. It was borrowed, adapted, and transplanted. One sport gave its protection to another, and the second sport eventually made it law. What Widdowson understood was that the body needs protecting before injury teaches you that lesson. He didn't wait for a broken tibia. He looked at his cricket bag and thought, why not? That small leap, cricket pad to football shin, rippled forward 150 years. Through leather, plastic, carbon fiber, and foam. Through Sunday leagues and World Cup finals. Today, from red dirt pitches in rural West Africa to the turf of the Bernabeu, every player on every sanctioned pitch wears something that traces directly back to Widdowson's cricket pads. Most people watching a World Cup final have never heard of Samuel Widdowson, but the equipment on every player's shin is his invention. The object outlasted the inventor's name. There is something quietly philosophical about the Shin Guard. It says, before the game begins, we acknowledge you can be hurt, and we do something about it, and then we play. The best inventions disappear into habit. Nobody notices the Shin Guard until a player forgets one. Then the referee notices, the stadium notices, and the rule reminds everyone why it exists. 150 years from 1874 to 2024. From a Victorian cricketer's penknife to carbon fiber shells tested in labs, the problem stayed the same. The solutions got lighter. The tibia, the shin bone, sits just beneath the skin, unpadded by muscle, angled forward into every tackle. It was always going to need protecting. It just took Widdowson to see it. Researchers today are experimenting with Shin Guards embedded with impact sensors, feeding real-time collision data to coaches on the sideline. Widdowson's cricket pad, networked. The best protective equipment is the equipment you forget you're wearing. Watch any match and you will never notice the Shin Guards. That is exactly the point. This is Origins. Subscribe and come back tomorrow. There's a new origin every single morning.